issues with it. I've done a little research, okay? I mean, 20 to 30% of people are natural good communicators, yet it's one of the top skills that employers are looking for.
Right.
And you absolutely need it in relationships to be effective.
In life. Is
It-
is it a learned behavior, or is it just some people are naturally better communicators than others? Or a combination of both.
Well, I think some people naturally have that gift of gab, but it's something that some of us. I think there's. I know a lot of us have that Well, I know there's a few of us that naturally have that gift of gab, but for others, it's got to be more of a learned strength.
Okay, so what is the communication issue that couples have mainly?
Yes, well,
Like, is it like the whole cliched thing where like the man doesn't talk, he doesn't share his feelings, the woman wants to over communicate? Is that true, or is it really more of like just general, like neither one of them are doing a very good job? Like maybe not extreme like that, but somewhere in the middle.
Well, there's actually been some science behind this, that men and women are different communicators in general. And there's a reason that men seem to be a little more distant or withdrawn and then are explosive. Okay, they have, different brain structures and different hormones, where women are better processors. There's more electrical activity between both parts of the brain. This is why, you think about with women, you think about when they're better multitaskers, they're usually better verbally gifted. Think about, we have 2 boys, 2 girls. Okay.
Yeah.
Those girls are constantly talking, and it's like they came out of the womb talking.
Yes.
When the boys are, it's hard. It's like pulling teeth. It's like,
information out of them.
going to the dentist, right?
Yes, or like
With them.
I text Liam and
Okay.
I get one word answers.
Uh-huh.
If I text Julia or Catherine, I get a whole paragraph of what has happened.
Yeah, so it's not always that way, but generally so. You come into the world, men and women, or boys and girls come into the world with different communication skills, and then you got to put them together and have a relationship. So it is typical, though, for when couples come in, it's the same pattern over and over again. Not always, but it's the guy that's withdrawn, right, and the girl or the woman seems to be like kind of an over communicator. And the typical story is, the wife comes in and is saying, is so frustrated because he's not hearing her. He's on his phone. He's closing her off. He doesn't seem interested. And he's like, she's saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Becomes the nag.
Yeah, becomes a total nag, when in fact, the solution is he hasn't heard her yet, right? There's been a failure.
Maybe he has heard her and he just doesn't, like, okay, he heard her.
Yeah,
But if it's something that needs to happen, and it's not happening, then maybe he's not hearing her.
Yeah.
Can I do a side note here question?
Well,
real quick?
what I was thinking, though, real quick. Do you remember the movie A White Man Can't Jump?
No.
And with Woody Harrelson.
Okay.
And who was the other character in that movie? Not Denzel Washington. Okay. All right, but Woody Harrelson was like, I think it was Woody Harrelson who said this, but he was like, you can hear me.
White men can't jump characters.
But okay. I know, but who said you're listening to me, but you're not hearing me?
Billy Hoyle? Oh, Woody Harrelson, Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. Who said you're hearing me, or you're listening to me, but you're not hearing me?
Who said you're listening to me,
but you're not hearing
me in White Men Can't Jump?
I bet Wesley Snipes said it. Or who?
Sidney Dean to Billy. Look, man, you can listen to Jimmy, but you can't hear him. There's a difference, man. Just because you're listening to him doesn't mean you're hearing him.
That was the characters.
Hold on, let me pull it up. Sorry.
Sydney was so that was Sydney saying that to Woody Harrelson. Okay.
Okay. Okay, go.
Okay. Do you remember in White Man Can't Jump with Woody Harrelson and Wesley? Do you remember White Man Can't Jump?
Don't say that. You already said it's
Okay.
like in White Men Can't
It's
Jump.
it's in like White Man Can't Jump when Wesley Snipes said to Woody Harrelson, "You are not." Fuck.
Said
You are. It's like in White Man. It's like
White
in.
Men Can't Jump.
It's. I said it before. It's like in that movie White Men Can't Jump. Wesley Snipes said to Woody Harrelson, "You are listening to me, but you're not hearing me." And that's what happens all the time in relationships.
Well, side note here. Here's a question. As you're talking about that, like men and women, this is in heterosexual relationships. So, or in straight relationships, but in gay relationships. So, does that mean like lesbian couples are much better communicators because they're both communicating well and hearing
Yeah.
the other person? And then in gay couples, it's like those, you got two guys. So, how's their communication?
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, I would imagine, I don't know what the research is, but I would assume that the lesbian couples are much better at communicating versus the gay couples. And,
Okay.
you know, we can even look at violence studies where there's a lot more violence in gay couples than there is in lesbian couples.
Okay.
So likely due to, you know, communication issues.
And
So-
frustration.
But regardless, you know, there's a couple different communication styles that people bring to a relationship. You know, a couple main styles, and you have people that are processors, and you know that you have a few different styles that people bring to a relationship in terms of communication, and it's rare that both people are the same. But when people are the same, there's usually less conflict.
Right.
Okay, and those communication styles are processors, you know, the people that just go on and on and on and like really don't come to a conclusion, right? But
Okay.
they just want to talk.
Okay.
And it can drive somebody crazy who's not a processor, right?
Right.
Because people, they'll even use that language like, I just need to process this,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And that drives the other one insane.
Well, especially if there's no like conclusion to it.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you have like avoiders, right? People that just are withdrawn and don't, and this is the typical male.
Well, you can't
that
have a
doesn't-
processor with an avoider. That's for
but
sure.
but it's very common,
Yeah.
right? And that really goes nowhere. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so and then you kind of have this mix between somebody that is volatile or a controller when it comes to communicating, right? Where they don't let the other person talk
Or
and
they're-
they're not listening at all,
Okay.
right?
And maybe not hearing the other person's point of view of something.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
You think about like like the typical boss, right? Who's making the decision, not listening to anyone. You know how you're the boss. You made a decision. You're not listening to me.
I don't think bosses.
I know. I'm kidding. Are you okay?
I don't think bosses are like that. Good bosses.
I'm-
Anyway, we're getting off track.
Yes. Yes. But I mean, there's a couple solutions there too. There was a great book.
wait, there's
I got to
other-
talk about this
okay,
book.
go ahead.
Okay. There's this great book called Conversational Capacity by Craig Weber. He was like a Vistage member. And he wrote this great book, and he talks about, you know, this common dyad between like the controller and then like the avoider, okay, which is common in relationships or common in like getting employees to communicate. And his solution is like for the avoider, you have to teach the avoider candor and curiosity, right?
Okay.
So, you know, where you're afraid to talk, but you are reaching out. Oh my gosh, wait a minute. I messed up. Candor and courage.
Okay.
But in this book, for the avoider, you have to work on skills like candor, like just being frank,
Yeah.
and then having the courage to speak.
Okay.
So you have to, because you're always going to keep that dynamic going if things don't change. And then for the person that's more the bully, the controller, in the conversation, in the dyad, that person needs to learn humility and also curiosity. So you have to show curiosity to bring out that information from the avoider. So, and then he talks about the sweet spot in communication when you get both those different styles working in unison, practicing those specific skills. So, like, what do you need to work on?
So what do you? Well,
What would you need to work on, like, with communication?
I think I'm an amazing communicator.
I mean, I do. I think that you're great at storytelling, and you're very verbally gifted.
Well, I don't know about that.
You can
but,
summarize things very well.
Yeah.
And
If
you.
there's an issue, I like say it. I don't bottle
No,
it up.
that's not true. When there's an issue, you don't always say it, but I know I can read you because your personality changes a little bit, and I say, Erica, what's going on? And you're like, nothing. And I'm like, yes, something's going on. And you're like, okay, how did you know? And then you tell me.
That's true.
And you're like, I wasn't going to tell you this, but
Well,
yeah.
that's if it's
And then-
usually if it's not about you.
I know. It's about like
If it's about something that like somebody
with
hurt
one
my
of the.
feelings or something like bothered me, then I will keep that in.
But do you feel better then once you process it with me?
Well, but
Talk
I'm married
about
to a
it.
psychologist, so
Oh,
you help me like process it.
that's true.
So it's different. I think our relationship's a little different because there's you,
Mm.
and so you're very helpful
hmm
in that area. But if we're talking about our relationship, then I feel like I don't hold back. If I have a problem, I tell you.
hmm I agree. You definitely do, and hopefully I act. So, but you know, like a real important skill too that people forget about with communication is the importance of being calm. So, like when there is conflict or when there is disagreement, this is the number one failure.
Right.
Okay, because
Well, I mean, like, do you see people like what happens? I feel like when you're not calm, you're just like making the problem way worse because then all of a sudden you've got like people who there's a problem and say one of the partners like expresses the problem to the other one and then the other one either avoids it or blows up.
yeah,
If he's avoiding it or she is avoiding it, then the other one like comes at them harder. And then eventually there's a blow up and then it becomes about the blow up and not really about what the problem was.
yeah. I mean, you're bringing up a lot of points. You're bringing up a lot of different points. I mean, the common dynamic though, when there is some kind of trouble with communication, is both people are on eggshells. You know, so like the normal threshold of getting upset has been lowered, right? So everybody's very tense. Okay, so small things set somebody off, right? You know, when things are going bad, like they can't even have a conversation about anything, right? Because typically your threshold is high, right?
You talk about stuff, it's
Yeah,
easy, whatever.
it's easy. But now, like my anger threshold, I mean, I'm angrier. Anything could set
So
me
then
off.
everything becomes a problem.
Right. So, and then what happens too psychologically for people is, I mean, we call it threat bias, where let's think about when your sympathetic nervous system is engaged, right? You're in fight or flight, and your view naturally narrows on the threat. So you're hyper focused on the person, and you start misinterpreting their agenda or what they're saying to you or their tone because everything becomes
see everything in a bad light.
in a bad light. So it happens with divorced people all the time, right? They make all these negative assumptions constantly, but it's because of a threat bias because the sympathetic nervous system gets engaged, you know, when you're with the person. And then the other part is, you know, when things are going well in a relationship though, and there are sensitive subjects, you know, and you're both, if you get upset, nothing positive will come out of a discussion if you are not calm, right? You gotta take a break sometimes. You walk away for 10 minutes, take a walk, focus on something else, do deep breathing exercises.
But sometimes when you're with somebody that's not that kind of a communicator, when when you go to take the break, they see it as like you're abandoning them or something, or
Oh!
avoiding the conversation.
I know, and that's and I'm
sometimes you just need a
speaking,
timeout.
and we're speaking to those people, right? Because it does set up this scenario. Because it is usually, the avoider, right? Maybe get over it because the avoider is avoiding because they're overwhelmed too.
Well, maybe the
Right?
avoider could be like, okay, I am going to come back to this. I need a 10-minute break.
Well, they do, and then they're like, "Please, like, just give me a break. I promise I'll talk about it." And the person that wants the process or the volatile person starts chasing them around.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I'm talking about.
And then they like spring on the other person, right? So, so we're talking to the volatile, controlling.
And then that
um,
that could even lead
person.
to like a violent interaction.
Well, I mean,
because
it
people
certainly
get
could.
that upset about it.
It certainly could.
Yeah.
So I mean, the rule is though, if you're and let's think about what fight or flight is, or when the sympathetic nervous system gets engaged. It's preparing for a threat, and your partner should not be a threat, right? Is an actual not threat. This is the person who you love. This is the person who you're committed to. But there's more than just we talk about fight. We talk about fight and flight, like you want to run away, you want to flee. But there's also freeze, and that's withdrawal when you get overwhelmed. But then humans also do something else. They posture. Okay, this is like bowing up. And what people do is they bow up with their words. So if you see yourself, you're arguing with your partner, and you're both throwing insults, trying to outdo the other person, right? Be even meaner than the other person is. That's posturing. And that means you're in fight or flight. And nothing good comes from that. And then the problem is with those relationships, and I hear this all the time. Well, he said that to me. He must have meant it, right? Because if he never would have said that, like how could he must really feel that way, right? But when we are only seeing red, we say things that we don't mean.
I know, but it's like the old saying about like, once you've broken the plate,
Aw.
even if you put it back together and glue it back together, the cracks are still there.
So, but
How do you
you're so
avoid
funny because that is your
saying-
interpretation. Because as the guy, you're like, "What plate? I didn't break a plate.
Yeah.
I didn't even mean that.
You
I
said
was.
something really
I mean, you
mean.
pissed me off. You're
Hard
like
to-
totally pissed me off.
Yeah.
I mean, because you like go for the jugular. You do, man.
I do not.
Oh, yeah, you do. So how do you resolve it, too?
Well,
what's the
okay? So,
what's
but
the
other
secret
than
sauce?
as far as the types,
Oh.
we go back to the
Okay.
types of communicators.
Yeah.
So you have the avoider, you have the processor, you have the,
You have the mix of this volatile
Mix of-
and
okay.
controlling
and those
person.
are all of the different kinds of.
Yeah, I mean, there's some variation, but again, like, as long as the couple is the same, if they're the similar or the same, things are usually okay. You think
This
about.
is not even
I don't want to be
couples. This could be friendships.
I mean-
siblings, like everybody.
at work. I mean, two coworkers.
Colleagues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
And but what's interesting too is because again, if people are kind of the same, and I don't want to stereotype, but people from like New York or New Jersey, I mean, stereotypically they're kind of volatile,
They're
right?
more
They're like screaming at each other, mad, right? I mean, you think about a couple, and then all of a sudden they're having makeup sex, right? Like 10 minutes later, and everything's back to normal.
Where in the South, it's more like you have to be polite and you don't want to.
Sure, even though sometimes they're still volatile. But yeah, I mean, there's like the typical, you got a processor and an avoider. That's usually what comes through the door
In couples.
in couples.
Well, because couples are men and women, and usually women are more processors and men are more avoiders.
Uh-huh.
So how do we raise our boys to not be avoiders?
Well, you got to teach them to talk and share
But
information.
it's not. I teach. I have 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. We do, and we communicate with them the same. We teach them the same, but the boys are naturally one-word answers. They don't share how their day went or what's
Yeah.
going on in their friend group, not in the same way that the girls do at all. And so it's not, I don't know what else to do. So that they grow up to be, it's fine. I mean, they are naturally who they are, but how do we get them to grow up to be good communicators? Is there a social, aspect to it? Like, are they seen as weaker or?
I thought it was
less
like the
manly.
silent, strong type. Oh, if they're
If they are
not the strong, the
too much of
silent
a
and strong
processor.
type.
Every little thing they needs to be processed. Every little thing has a feeling.
Even though we do have one child that talks constantly, Aiden.
Yes, he's
Right.
all the time.
Uh-huh.
He's a major processor.
He is a major processor.
Yes.
But in relationships, he's not as much of a communicator. Just like as a child, parent, dyad, he's a communicator,
Right.
right? But not with his friends as much.
Yeah. And we talk.
So,
Yeah,
but
anyway.
I mean, but we tell. I think.
Well, they communicate. The boys communicate with their friends perfectly fine, and they're very vocal.
Mhm.
Not with us. So will that be how it is in a relationship when they're older? I don't know.
Mhm.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, because you're
Is
just
that
talking
just
about
you?
how
Yes.
you're just talking about how they're talking to us, whether they're talking to us or not.
Yeah.
But the
they talk to
conversation
their
is
top-
but the
their
conversation is
peers.
different between no, I mean the conversation is different between the boys with their friends. I mean they're often on their phone, they're engaged in an activity together, they're playing video games.
Right. They're
Okay.
not sitting around debriefing.
No,
about
They're
the night
boys
before and
are watching a football game together, a
Yeah,
baseball game
that's
together.
true.
There's an activity that joins them. The girls, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, even if they're on their phones, they're like
They're
still,
sharing information with each other
Yeah.
about like, oh, this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those relationships are different. But I think that we have to, you educate them too, and you talk about the differences, like especially for the guys, that their brain structure is a little different.
Well, I think that what we try to do, like even at home, is, they're free to give us one-word answers and be that way. That's fine, as long as their relationships with their peers are good, which they
Yeah.
are. But then, if there's some sort of conflict in the home, is where you would want to make sure that you're teaching your boys to handle conflict and not
Yeah.
like just
Well,
stow
not
away
avoid,
in their
not,
room.
not avoid,
it.
not avoid things, right?
We're gonna talk this through. We're
Yeah.
gonna come to a resolution, and everybody's gonna understand what's happening.
Yep.
And maybe that is the way to
And we do that, right? And I think, and the best, parents just have to model that for
right.
their kids. And then also when you
But
are
if
having,
you're in a house where the father is an avoider,
yeah.
then
Well, this is what
it's
I
hard
mean.
to like.
I mean,
then
the
raise kids
avoiding
that
fa-
aren't-
the avoiding fathers need to be listening to this too, because you need to. I mean, if you're as a man or woman, you understand intellectually the importance of being a good communicator and not being an avoider, right? You can't avoid conflict. You've got to be able to express your feelings and your needs and your wants.
Yes,
to
but
be-
here's another thing: those same avoider husbands and men then
Yeah.
go to work and they're bosses and leaders, and they have no problem.
Well, I mean, often.
They have no problem being,
Mhm.
communicative then.
Yeah, and that's often true. So sometimes
what is it?
sometimes it's that intimate relationship. They don't know how to communicate effectively, or they're afraid, right? They're afraid to be vulnerable with the wife to really express what their needs are, or their wife is overpowering in some way, right? And they are afraid of her, or they think, man, if I open this can of worms up,
It's going to go on.
no, it's just going to go on and on. I'm just going to wait until she stops talking, right? I mean, that's
Yeah, but
like
yeah.
often the scenario. But again, you gotta understand what the need is, because people will.
Sometimes the woman she's just like she's communicating over and over because like he's not being responsive.
No, I agree. I mean that he's not being responsive, but what?
Like, I don't want to just keep nagging. Just do what you're supposed to do.
Uh-huh.
Like, for instance, you're not the tidiest human being
Wow.
that we live with.
Yeah,
in our
that's
home.
true.
And so we have a little bar area, the bar area when you come in.
Yeah.
And oftentimes your gym clothes, your tools end
Yeah.
up on that bar.
Yeah.
And I have asked you for the 12 years we've lived in
Wow.
our house, can you please just put the stuff away?
Mm.
And it never happens. It's always still your pattern. You just still do it. So then it's like I'm the nag because I'm constantly like, get your stuff off the bar. You got to clean the bar up. And
Do you take it
I don't want
personally?
to be a nag.
Do you take
You're
it
putting me in
personally,
this
though?
position
Is it a
where
sign
it's
of
like
dis-
I'm having to like freaking parent you.
Is it a sign of disrespect that I?
Yes, I
How
take
about
it
it's like,
at this point in our relationship, I feel like when you set something on that bar,
yeah,
you are doing it on purpose
Wow.
because you know that it doesn't belong there and that I don't want it there.
it's just like wired in my personality for some reason to do that.
It's a personal,
It's not.
resolve.
I really. But when you go out of town, I mean, the thing is, when you go out of town, I mean, you're right.
The 2 times I go out of town a year without you, and then I
Well,
come home and the bar is clean.
yeah, I do
really
that.
do appreciate that. That is lovely. But what about the other 350 days out of the year? See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, where is it? Like, at some point, you're just being disrespectful.
Or,
We live in a house together.
but there's got to be a balance.
If there was something that I was doing that bothered you enough
Yeah.
that you say it over and over and over again, and I just keep on doing it, well, then what does that say?
Well, I
What
want
does that
you.
tell you
I want
about
you
how
to.
what I think about
Okay,
you?
I understand that. I
See,
understand that.
this is what I'm talking about.
I understand that it's
This is what I'm
really.
talking about.
I understand that it's really upsetting to you.
No, it's
but
just
I
that-
want you to take some perspective. I want you to take. I
do
want you to
have
do a
perspective.
perspective
Here's my
check.
perspective.
Why
You're
do I do that?
wonderful In 95%
Why do I do that?
of the areas, the fact that you're a slob is just one area I'm having.
I mean, am I
just
really a
having to
slob?
Deal with. Yeah,
Am
you
I
are.
really a slob?
You're a slob.
Or do you think maybe I have a little, a little attention to detail issue
I understand
sometimes
that. So
and
I
follow through?
accept it.
And maybe he's got so much going on, right? I have so much going on. And then the other part is I often don't finish a project, and I put things there to remind me to complete it. Okay?
Your like power drill will be
Yeah.
sitting on
Yeah.
the bar.
Well, I haven't
for
finished
weeks.
I haven't finished the
Then
task
then
because
this
I had to
happens.
order
No,
something from
everybody
Amazon.
needs to hear
I have to order something from Amazon to
Then this is what
finish
happens.
and then
We're
you
gonna
get mad
have
at me.
wait a minute, no,
And
no,
then you
no.
get mad at me for not finishing the project.
Finish it. Just
Well,
finish the
if
project.
I put my tool set away, I'll like be on to
That's not-
something else.
And then this is what happens. So
Wow.
then we're gonna have people over.
You're good looking
or
when
something.
you're good looking when you
And
argue.
so then I have this little game I play with my teenage children, where I'm like, okay, everybody's gonna take 10 minutes, and you're gonna just do what I need, what mom needs for 10 minutes straight.
It's a field day.
Okay? And so they come in, and for 10 minutes, I'm like, Aiden, I need you to go blow the back patio and do this and put this laundry away and da-da-da. And Julia, this is what I need you. And Liam, I want you to clean the bar. Somebody is inevitably tasked with cleaning off the bar. Well, so then this is what happens. The bar gets cleaned off, and people put things in places that they don't belong, and then you never find that item again because
That's
it's
true.
been put away.
I'm still looking
or
for
it's
my.
been thrown away.
I'm still looking for my charger for
And
the
then I
blower.
say- and
Where's
then I
the
say-
charger for the blower? Did that reappear?
I don't know where it is, but it's
Wow, because I didn't finish blowing.
finish blowing.
Well, I couldn't. The battery ran out,
Well, then recharge
and then I
it and get
recharged
back
it,
to
and then
the
I finished the
same
job.
day.
I'm sorry.
Okay, here we go.
I was, the battery only lasts so
It's
long.
a circular conversation.
Okay, I'm
But this
sorry.
is what
I'm
people
going to work on
across
it.
America are
I'm
dealing
going to
with.
work on it, and I'm going to work on it.
You
You're going
say
to
that.
report back.
You say that, and then
Maybe you should work on
and then you're
acceptance.
good, and then
Maybe
you're
you should
good
work on
for-
acceptance. I mean the importance. I know I have to allow influence, and I understand that. I'm doing the best. I'm doing the best that I can.
I have to accept that it's not going to be perfect, and I don't expect
Yeah.
perfect. I went from the bar needing to be clean 100% of the time to I need the bar to be clean, a
Mm-hmm.
majority of the time.
Yeah, but it's good. So it's
I accept
progress.
that you have.
It's progress, not perfection.
I accept that you have some issues with this.
I do, and maybe I bet like the busier I am, the more things there are on the bar.
But I see it as a personal attack on me because
Okay.
it bothers me that much.
But it's not. But if you are doing some perspective taking, it's not a personal attack. It's due to my personality.
I understand that.
Right? And I'm
I've
trying
come to
on it.
accept
I'm
that.
trying on. I'm trying to do it and trying to get things done. And I put them there as a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And you have
Sorry, I'm
many-
sorry, I'm
You
sorry.
have so many things in the pro category that
Thank
the
God.
con or they're
Thank God.
manageable.
I mean, thank goodness you don't do anything that's upsetting to me.
What do I do?
Nothing. You're perfect. You are virtually perfect. But you know what I was thinking? That's right. You know what I was thinking about? So, because I use this example with couples on Netflix, there's this great show about chimpanzees, about chimpanzee troops. And of course, chimpanzees don't verbally communicate. I mean, they do like hoot and holler and things like that. But how they communicate is through grooming and touch.
Okay.
Okay? And humans have evolved very effective communication. There's lots of theories as to how that evolved for us, and it was about hunting and mating and where we are creating more complex societies. In civilization, you have to be better at communicating. I mean, look what we do. From cuneiform hieroglyphics, right, to language that we have today, right? Written word that we have today.
Should we touch while we're arguing?
No. But the thing is, we've evolved communication.
Yeah.
So it is like touch. It is like, we've evolved away from touch, but I create an alliance with you. I exchange information. We grow our knowledge base through words. But there's a reason that people in a relationship need to be communicating. It is like touch. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the touch in the relationship, because I got to always know where you are. You need to know where I am, right? So we're on the same page. Mm-hmm. But it's just a great example of how humans, it's important, right? I mean, it runs our society. Look at the words on the wall. Everything's about communication, right?
So can we talk for just a quick
It helps
second
us survive. Helps us survive
how to
and
fight
thrive.
fairly? What
wow.
are some ground rules for fighting
Man.
as far as the communication aspect of it?
Oh, well, I mean, the first ground rule is your job is to make sure your partner feels okay after the conversation's over, right? If you're in it,
If each of you is looking to make sure the other person is okay.
Yeah, I always have to back up a little bit, and I'm like, wait a minute, I need to make sure that she feels okay after this is done.
Right. But but it takes both of you doing
it does.
Because if it's only one person doing that, then
but
that causes some resentment.
Well, it should be both of you, but you can't control the other person, so you got to at least manage yourself, right? The hope is that both people are doing that.
Yeah.
But you are managing yourself. You're staying calm. I'm thinking, I don't want to hurt her. I want her to feel okay. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't matter what we're arguing about per se. Mm-hmm. We have to come to some resolution, and I'm not going to be using blame. I'm going to be using some I statements, right? It hurts my feelings when you don't remove the power drill from the bar, mm-hmm. right? And then, I wish you would put it away, right, when you're done, or put it in a different place. Mm-hmm. But then, hear the other person's perspective. And then, of course, you've got to put your phone down and be fully engaged in the conversation. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that gets missed is body language, too, and that's part of putting your phone down. But your body language really expresses whether you want to be in the situation or not, in the conversation. So, and I've talked about this before, your most important body parts in communication are your feet, right? So it's you should have your feet kind of open and allowing the person to enter your space, it's okay to cross your legs and stuff, but you got to at least be facing the other person and show an interest. Mm-hmm. And then
working towards resolution.
Yeah, you got to work towards resmost. And if you're not
But
working towards resolution,
wait a minute. Let me stop you there, because you told me one time, most of arguing within a couple in a relationship, it's the same issue over and over again.
Yeah, so it's 70% of the disagreements it's the same thing. Right. I mean, 70% of what you're arguing about.
It just keeps happening.
Well, it's because so many things are personality based.
Yeah.
So it's the same theme over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So, there needs to be some acceptance, okay? But also, it's the effort, too, that often heals, too. People don't expect you to be perfect, but they just need to see that there's effort.
You're moving in the direction of
that you're trying.
But what if I know I'm talking about you being a slob, which is
oh wow,
has no impact.
That's so strong. That's such a strong
label.
You're labeling me.
What about if it's somebody who
Why are you using
has
labels?
a major spending
You know
problem?
what's so crazy is where you're like labeling me, and these people say don't use labels, but they are like the biggest label makers.
That's true.
Okay,
Yes, I'm sorry to call you a slob.
it's okay. That really hurt my
You're-
feelings.
You're,
But you apologized. I really appreciate it. Because the other thing is, like I always talk about, there's got to be two heroes,
yeah.
and that means like two. They're like when people are in conflict,
say you're
you need
sorry.
to. Oh, yeah, it's okay to say you're sorry. And you use humor. You hug each other.
Hug,
I mean, when
yeah.
you're really upset, sometimes, and this is like what like I use this example. When your spouse is really upset, sometimes they just want a hug, right? Or even though they think they don't want a hug.
Yeah,
And I'll have women say, yes, I wish that he would just hug me.
right.
After it's over, just hug me.
Yeah.
I got to know that I'm okay and that I'm loved. So hug her, right? Or hug him.
But what if it's a recurring problem that's like damaging, like a financial, somebody's like an overspender?
But I mean, so that's even more than communication though.
That's a whole
right?
different thing.
Because we're just talking about exchanging information, how to exchange it properly.
Right.
So that's a whole other issue,
Yeah, okay.
right?
Mhm.
And then, but what often happens, even though we say like 67% of people who are exercising couples therapy are coming because of reported communication problems, it's usually about something else
Something
though.
else.
Because these people are in fact, great communicators and just not with each other because there's, there's already been so much damage, or there's fear, or there's anxiety, there's just so much baggage already in the relationship. And then what often happens is it's like what the real reason is that people are not, you feel like you're not living your dream. Like, whoa, I've been married for 20 years and this is not what I expected. This is not how life should be.
Yeah,
And it is because the other person is like engaged in something, some issue, or, you've changed too.
right.
You've evolved in some way. That's why people got to evolve together.
Mhm.
So
So final takeaway?
I don't know. I mean, I just love talking to you too. That's the thing.
Me too.
So, I mean, there's nobody that I would rather talk to. And, I'm hoping that is the way it is for people. But I think, the most important thing to remember in an argument, and we talked about this earlier, was if there is conflict, your job is to leave that discussion making sure the other person feels okay about themselves and still feels secure in the relationship.
Yes, the security.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
I agree.
so, like, just knowing that, like, you got to love the person. You talk kindly as you can. And if you're posturing, if you feel like, oh, they just hurt me, they said something about,
It doesn't mean you
because
go
you know
lash
what
out
you,
and hurt them
you know
back.
the things that you say to me to really hurt me. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And do I think you mean it? No. I mean, I know. But if I said some things, ooh, you would never be able to let them go.
I just bring it up over and over.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. So, but that means you're in fight or flight, right? And we can't be in
Yeah.
fight or flight because nothing good comes from a conversation when you're in
Just
that,
looking
when
out
that
for
sympathetic nervous system is engaged.
Yeah.